Hello everyone and welcome to the 32nd episode of Chin-Quee Chats, the bite-sized podcast where we talk movies, sports, and everything in between. I am your host Matthew Chin-Quee, and this week I am back by myself again because, I don't know, I just am. And I'm really full from sushi. We just, my roommate and I, staff, just went out and met up with a couple of friends, had some sushi, and I'm currently dying. My stomach is absolutely about to explode, but the podcast grind still goes on, and I still got to talk some movies, right? Now this week, what I really want to talk about is in honor of Wrinkle in Time flopping, and I actually haven't seen it yet because who has time to go see movies nowadays? Although I did actually just get a chance to finally see Alex Garland's Annihilation, which was absolutely astounding. If you guys take a moment out of your day and go check that out because it's got to be one of the best sci-fi horror movies I've ever seen. Then again, you guys know me, I don't watch many horror movies, so it doesn't have much to compare to, but it is one of the best sci-fi thinking movies I've ever seen, and it really has just a tinge of horror and thriller in there. I think even if you're not a horror fan, you can still find a lot to enjoy in the film, especially if you are one of those a fan of those intellectual sci-fi movies that have really made a resurgence this year, these past few years. But back on track, or back to the topic at hand. A Wrinkle in Time just came out this past week. Something that was highly anticipated, was really pushed by Disney with their marketing, and unfortunately, it did not do so well on a huge budget, on a $200 million budget, the first $200 million plus dollar movie to be directed by an African-American woman, Ava DuVernay, who's an incredible director in and of herself. Did Selma a couple years ago, and just from all her stuff on social media, seems like a great stand-up person. It's unfortunate that her movie isn't doing so well, but in honor of that, I do want to be talking about box office flops and my big three. I want to talk about some box office flops that are actually pretty good movies. And I don't want to talk about the really bad ones because I don't really want to sit here and shit on movies that not only didn't make money, but were also really bad. So I want to pick out some gems in hopes that when I eventually do see A Wrinkle in Time, I do find something redeemable about it, although it is very unlikely from all the stuff that I'm hearing, all the negative reviews, but here's hoping. And then in the free chat segment, although we're 2 weeks out from the Olympics, last week I had Roman on, and we didn't get a chance to talk about the Olympics, and the Paralympics are just starting, and I want to kind of recap the main event that ended a couple weeks ago, just because I didn't really get the time to do so last week. So we'll do that, and then it might be a little bit shorter episode because I'm by myself, but who knows? Once I get started, it's hard to get me to stop. So we'll see. We'll be right back for the cinema chat segment. I'm not your normal definition of a rock star. I don't complain when my private jet is subpar. Your mom's old, but I'll ask if she's your sister. Okay, cinema chat segment time. Now I want to start right off the bat with it's actually a recent film that I want to talk about. One that did not do well, but I remember seeing in theaters, and I remember laughing my ass off and thinking, why is nobody else in the theater? There was maybe 20 other people in that theater with me. My brother and I went and saw it, and this is Popstar Never Stop Popping. Now this is it is most definitely a mockumentary style. I mean, even just from the name, it's parodying the Justin Bieber Never Say Never, I believe, that documentary that it was called, that basically every teenage girl back in like 2012 or whenever it came out went and saw it and dragged their parents along with it. Anyways, I actually caught a bit of it on TV the other day. It actually wasn't that bad. It was kind of interesting, but anyways, coming back to Popstar. This is directed by Judd Apatow, and I remember when this had come out, and this may have actually contributed to the performance of this movie. I thought that this movie looked so stupid. Oh, it's not actually It's not actually directed by Judd Apatow. It's just produced by it. I don't do research. But I remember watching this movie, or I'm watching the trailers for this movie and hearing. I actually think I got passes, like screening passes for this movie that I passed up on. I didn't want to see it. I was like, it's kind of like stupid. I'm a big fan of Andy Samberg, but the trailers did not sell this movie at all. And it's about it basically is just parodying like one of those MTV documentaries, or like I said before, the Justin Bieber documentary that was made before, kind of chronicling the life, almost the rise and fall of a super popular singer who's played by Andy Samberg now. They hit aspects of everything, and I have a feeling that they're kind of making fun of the boy band phase a little bit with the group in there. I think they're called the Style Boys, spelled with a Z, of course, because why not? And these are played by the other members of Lonely Island that nobody really knows the name of, and the ones that I almost always take a backseat to Andy Samberg. And the movie features so many different cameos. I mean, Andy Samberg must have a gigantic reach, probably from his SNL days, with all these celebrities, real life celebrities, and real life musicians who, throughout the movie, are coming in just like how a documentary would, a regular documentary would, and saying like, oh, Connor Friel and the Style Boys, they really had an influence on me growing up and whatnot, and. It is so stylistic and so exuberant and so over the top that I found myself just laughing at how ridiculous it was at certain times. I mean, there's one particular segment in the film called and I think it's CMZ, which is a parody of TMZ, and it literally just cuts right in the middle of this documentary, and for those of you who haven't watched TMZ, it is some of the trashiest television you ever watch. I mean, go search up a YouTube video of it right now, and it's literally just the producers and the quote unquote writers. They're all sipping on their like little sippy cups, and they're sitting around a desk and just throwing out random shit about what celebrities have done. And the parody of this of it in Popstar is it might be the single-handedly most accurate parody I've ever seen of anything before. I mean, if you watch them side by side, you honestly probably couldn't even tell them apart, except for the fact that the CMC has like Chelsea Peretti. I'm pretty sure it has Eric Andre in there, and you can tell that they're doing this to make fun of it. But in the strange, eerie way, it's actually so accurate. It's kind of sad for the people who work at TMZ, and you know what? If that's their job and that's what they love to do, I'm not gonna shit on them. But yeah, if anything, the movie is worth it for that little segment. But there are also other great things in this movie, such as the actual music. I mean, Andy Samberg. I mean, if you guys have listened to any of the Lonely Island stuff over the past few years, I mean, they really hit it big when I was back in high school in like 2011. But no, actually, no, they even hit it big earlier, because I remember I was listening to their song "I'm on a Boat" with T-Pain, and my mom found out. She was going through my iTunes or something like that, and my mom found out, and I will never forget. She just screamed at me because of all the profanity in that, and she's like, "Is this what you're listening to?" Anyways, that was pretty funny, but that. Lonely Island stuff, it's actually pretty catchy. It's actually pretty good, and the music that they put into this film. I mean, you have people featuring like Justin Timberlake. I mean, Emma Stone features in the music as well, and the music is actually pretty damn catchy. And yeah, Popstar, it's a great quality movie in my opinion, and was severely overlooked in 2016, which itself is one of my favorite film years of all time in the past few decades. But yeah, check that out when you can. I don't think it's on Netflix, but wherever you can find it, give that movie some love, because I seriously think it is underrated. Now another one, I'm going to switch genres. I'm going to go to it's more of a romantic comedy, I'd say. And this is Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Now this movie actually didn't do too badly, but it definitely didn't make its budget back, and which is kind of strange seeing as it has some really big names. It stars Steve Carell and Keira Knightley, and I found this one on a list on Compass actually, and I was like, that was one that really stuck out to me because I watched it. I watched it, I believe, last year, and you see a lot of these. You see a lot of these apocalypse movies. You know, you have. Well, I can't think of any off the top of my head. There was the one with Jonah Hill um, and co and like James Franco. This is the end. That's what it's called. It's called This Is the End. It's literally just cameo the movie, and it's just celebrities acting all weird the movie. But you have a lot of movies like that, whereas this one it kind of takes a more romantic comedy angle, and one that well, honestly, we've kind of seen it before. We've seen the kind of unlikely couple coming together in time of crisis. You've seen that all before. But what really carries a movie? It's not really the comedy because it is funny in certain moments. If you get Steve Carell on screen, it's gonna be funny in certain moments, unless he's doing like Foxcatcher, The Big Sick, something like that. Not The Big Sick, The Big Short. Imagine if he was in The Big Sick, that would be funny. Uh, but if you have Steve Carell on screen, most likely you're gonna get some sort of comedy, and it does have that. But what this film really does super well is it develops the chemistry between Carell and between Knightley so well that in the end, I don't want to spoil it, you're left satisfied even if it's not exactly the most satisfying ending. But yeah, this movie was criminally underseen, I think, and well, not criminally. It didn't do too badly, but it was underseen. So definitely check that one out when you can. And one more probably because I want to spend a little bit more time to talk about the Olympics in the free chat segment. Do have a lot to talk about there, but the last one I want to talk about, and then some honorable mentions in the end, is the Iron Giant, and this one came out in 1999. And when I was looking up, doing a little bit of research for this, I was actually really surprised to see the different numbers in here. I mean, this has a budget from upwards of 70 million, and the movie only made 23.2 million, and yet I mean, I've known about this movie since I was a kid, and maybe it's because I grew up on a lot of these animated movies, even though it isn't Disney, and that might actually partly be the reason why it went up in the same year against my beloved and the juggernaut known as Tarzan, even though people really didn't see that one much either, but it did make its money back because it is Disney. But a lot of people know about the Iron Giant. It's pretty big in pop culture. I mean, even looking ahead 2 weeks from now, it'll be featured in Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. It has had that lasting impact. So it kind of baffled me that this movie didn't make its money back now. It does have some big names even for the 90s. It had Jennifer Aniston at what I'd say is the peak of her career. You know, that was I think Friends was a little bit winding down there, but she was out doing her own thing. It's Jennifer Aniston voice in as the mother in the movie. Harry Connick Jr., who I assume he was big once. He was on American Idol once, I think, as a judge. So I'm assuming because he was on American Idol, he was pretty big in the 90s because, you know, that's just how American Idol goes. And directed by Brad Bird, kind of before Brad Bird became a huge name in Hollywood. It was before he had really made his name in the Pixar escape with The Incredibles and Ratatouille, and before he kind of moved towards the Mission Impossible franchise with the Ghost Protocol, which was phenomenal. But by the way, Brad Bird is one of the best working directors, and I don't think people give him a lot of credit for. I mean, he was an animation director, and he moved on and really helped move the Mission Impossible franchise even more after JJ kind of almost revitalized the entire series with Mission Impossible 3. It's a shame nobody could revitalize Iron Giant's box office revenues. But this is a really touching movie. It's not your typical animated movie because it's not really exactly happy. It's actually kind of sad and well, definitely sad in the end. For those of you who've seen it, most people know what happens at the end. But it is sad in the end. But throughout the movie, there's kind of something melancholy about about the Iron Giant's loneliness in his existence as just by himself, and the parallels between him and the kid and what the kid's going through. You don't know. He's searching for just a friend, someone to hang out with. His mom's always gone. Anyways, this movie, it really tugs at the heartstrings, and it makes you want to cry, man. I caught it on TV over Christmas again. I was drawn right back into the world and drawn right back into the relationship between this kid and this gigantic weaponized, mechanized robot. So yeah, the Iron Giant. It's a really great movie, and that kind of rounds out my big three of the pops are never stop popping. Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, and The Iron Giant. Now, I kind of want to do some honorable mentions, just based off of some research that I did before. One of them is Idiocracy, came out in 2006, directed by Mike Judge, and it's ironic because Terry Crews stars in this, and he said this is probably his most underrated role, and I was watching The Hot Ones with Terry Crews. That series is so damn addicting, and also really makes you want not onion rings. I almost said onion rings. Makes you really want chicken wings. But Idiocracy, it's a really good another parody, almost another satire. It's not mockumentary style, but and perhaps back then it wasn't really satire, but it definitely is now. If you look at the parallels between the theatrics in the government that go on in that movie and the theatrics that go on in just any politics nowadays, how televised they are, how stylized they are, how hyped up they are for a lot of things. There are some really oddly kind of scary parallels between there. And speaking of, very political movies, Fight Club was another box office flop. That made $37 million on a $63 million budget. It barely made half its budget back, and that's directed by David Fincher. Has some big names too, even for the time. Brad Pitt, Edward Norton, and Helena Bonham Carter. I'm sure many people have seen this by now. But it probably doesn't help that it was critically panned at the time, and honestly is just a really strange movie. Even outside of that twist, even before you have the main character who doesn't really have a name, and is doing some weird ass shit throughout the entire movie. So maybe I can understand why Fight Club didn't get the recognition that it kind of deserved or has gotten now. It just didn't get it at the time. And finally, my last honorable mention is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This one came out in 2010, directed by Edgar Wright, who doesn't really have that big of an audience, I think, outside of America. I mean, in terms of the general audience, his humor is very, very British humor. If you look at the Cornetto trilogy and Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I mean, it technically isn't even American. It takes place in Toronto, and stars the Canadian icon / screen legend Michael Cera. And this is another cult hit. This is another movie that it didn't even make. It made less than Fight Club on a higher budget. It made $32 million on an $85 million budget. I mean, it is a flop, but it's not only a great comic book adaptation, it's not only a great love story, but it's also really funny in the way that Michael Cera and Edgar Wright can really be kind of this awkward, matter-of-fact humor that doesn't really induce any super gut-busting laughs, but you're kind of chuckling throughout the entire movie. And then the visuals in it are kind of cool, incorporating that pixelated old school video game type fights, and the the coins that he collects and whatnot. And yeah, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is one that has had its following, but at the time it didn't really make its money. So here's hoping that A Wrinkle in Time, which is what I'm doing this episode in honor of, kind of finds its following later, or maybe it just sucks. Anyways, that's it for the Cinema Chat segment. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about Wheel. I'll be right back to talk about the Olympics as someone who is a self-professed Olympics expert, and what I thought of Pyeongchang 2018. I'll be right back.
not gay, that the government has to say, and who can love, who not gay, or to which god you can pray on a gay. It gets me so angry on behalf of
And we're back for the free chat segment where I'm going to do a quick recap of the rest of the Olympics. Now, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I can't remember, it was 2 episodes ago, I know for sure, I had done a recap of week 1 of the Olympics, kind of going over just the golds that Canada had won overall. But I kind of want to go over just overall, the Olympics overall, kind of give a review from someone who has very recently, over the past 2 or 3 Olympics, have really started to get into it. I would call myself a very self-professed Olympics expert. I really want to somehow get to the next Olympics, not in Tokyo, but in Beijing for 2022. I want to somehow, volunteer for Canada House or something like that. I want to be there because I've never done it. And I was hoping that Toronto would make a bid for 2028, the 2028, or 2024 Summer Olympic Games, but unfortunately they didn't. It sounded like they might, but Calgary may get to 2030, I believe, for the Winter Olympics. So here's crossing my fingers, hoping that we get something like that. No, it would be 2026 Calgary Olympic Games. The Olympics, or the years are getting really messed up. But taking a look at the medal total overall for the main Olympic Games, the Paralympic Games have just started, and it's really unfortunate they don't get the coverage that they should. I even tried to pull up the CBC's website, who had some really great coverage for the regular Olympics. Well, no, I shouldn't say regular, the main events. The main event, they had outstanding coverage for that, but for the Paralympics, they don't really have much, which is actually kind of sad, because I think that the Paralympians are even more tougher than the regular Olympians. The Olympians go through a lot of shit, but the Paralympians do, they do it with a lot more setbacks than some of the other athletes do, who are at full strength, I should say. But looking at the medal total, Norway had an astounding 39 medals at 14 golds, as did Germany, and that ties Canada's record. I'm so glad it did not get broken, although you had the German hockey team, which pulled off a hell of an upset, getting to the finals of the hockey, beating Canada's, I wouldn't even say their B team, they were like our F team, because half our good players are in the NHL, and the stupid commissioner for the NHL, it's really the only time I really care about hockey. I mean, I'll watch it in playoffs, but I really don't follow hockey too closely unless it's the Olympics. But that stupid commissioner wouldn't let the NHL players come and play for their Olympic teams, because who knows why. We should have secured that gold. But yeah, at the top you have Norway and Germany. Norway, who's always done well in the Winter Olympics, because I think that's literally all they that's all they practice for. I don't think you really see them in the Summer Olympics much. And then Germany, you got those like luge events and the bobsledding events, and they put together a pretty good squad and came out of nowhere with again the hockey, and kind of surprised a lot of people, I think. And then my Canada in third place. We did pretty well this year. I mean, we had 11 goals, and that's without our usual almost shoe-in goals of from both men's and women's curling, and both women's and men's hockey, which we normally get all 4, and this year we didn't get any. I think we got 2 medals out of all of them. We had the heartbreaker with the women's final hockey game, where it came into a shootout, and honestly, I think we were going to lose that game anyways. The American girls they're skating with a lot more energy than we were. But that is a heartbreaker, and you can bet that it's going to be a Canada-US final in Beijing 2022, and I think we're going to come back and beat their asses at that next time. And then the Canadians men team, we know how that went. They got a bronze still, but that it's a little bit unfortunate we weren't able to send our best squad there. But given what they had, I think they did all right. They still got a bronze, which I've heard. based off of research that some psychologists had done, that bronze actually feels better than silver, because people fight for bronze, but you got to lose to win silver in a lot of those. So it's you kind of feel good about getting that bronze. But the real surprise of these Olympics, I think, was how well Canada did in their skiing and snowboarding. This is kind of a strange Olympics for Canada because, like I said before, we didn't win any of our curling, we didn't win any of our hockey, but in the events that traditionally dominated by the Norwegians, by the Swiss, by Austrians even, we kind of took a lot of those. We took the big air snowboard. We took some half pipe snowboards, and then the ski cross. Or as some fans were calling it, the murder cross, because it is such a dangerous sport. If you haven't heard of ski cross, it's kind of like when you see in the X Games, it's kind of like the motocross where they go on it's a very short track, it's a very small track, but they're racing at top speeds and going over these hills. But this is on skis, so if you make one little mistake, your leg's getting broken. I mean, we had actually seen athletes, even Canadian athletes, they took some really hard falls, and unfortunately, they weren't able to finish, but fortunately they are okay. But even during some of the finals, we had seen some of them take huge, hard crashes. But sticking more to the positive, Canada has won both golds in both men and women's ski cross, and it's funny because the sport was actually introduced in Vancouver in 2010, and we've won every single gold since that. Canada is the only nation to ever win gold in an Olympic ski cross, which is super cool. And we're just kind of continuing the tradition here in Pyeongchang, and hopefully in Beijing 2022, we'll continue the tradition there and be the only nation to ever win ski cross 4 years in a row, or 4 Olympics in a row. But I think that may wrap up all the major sports, other than, well, I guess I could talk about speed skating and the incredible performance we had from a lot of I think most of them are actually from Quebec, which is super cool, or maybe not. I don't even know where I was going with that. Our young team featuring Sam Girard or Kim Buten, who had been in her first Olympics and won like 3 or 4 medals, something like that. She was our flag bearer at the end, very, very well deserved after all the stuff that she went through in the Olympics, receiving death threats that were absolutely not her fault, and then crying up on the medal podium and getting her bronze because of those death threats. I mean, it's just really not fair. I don't care how far you get into the Olympics, and I know myself that I get pretty deep into them, but sending death threats, that's a little bit too far. There's patriotism, and then there's just being a jerk, and you're just being a jerk if you're doing that, or even you're being more than a jerk, you're being a criminal. But what I really want to talk about is figure skating. I know I went over my love for Tessa and Scott in the last Olympic recap episode, but this time it's a little different because unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to catch the men's, but I think the men's program, it was pretty clear cut who was going to win. It was always going to be the Japanese skater. I forget his name, Hanzu or something like that. It was always going to be that, but the women's was a very, very tight race between the 2 Russian girls, and it's always the Olympic athletes from Russia. I mean, you have a 15-year-old Alina Zakatova, and she's out there doing like five triples in a row, and for those of you who don't know, that's when their body does three rotations. That's 3 rotations of your body on skates. I mean, I can't even turn around on the ground when I'm skating. Like, and this girl's 15. I don't even know what I was doing when I was 15, probably watching Olympics and thinking, hey, yeah, those people are a lot older than me, I'll never be there. And meanwhile, the Russians are developing skaters at 11 years old who are doing these type of things. But yeah, you had this huge showdown between these 2 Russian girls who have been at it for a long time. I mean, they've seeing as they're coming up under the same coach, and seeing as they've seen each other skate, and they're presumably best friends, or not best friends, really good friends off the ice, but when they're on the ice, they're very competitive, and it was always going to be a race between those 2 for gold and silver. Ultimately, it went to the 15-year-old Alina, and the silver went to Evgenia, and then the bronze went to Caitlin Osmond of Canada, which was awesome to see. She skated out of her mind. She had one little stumble there. If you couldn't tell, over these Olympics, I've somehow really gotten into figure skating. I love the drama. I love the politics behind it, and it is some of the most stressful sporting event you'll ever watch, because when they're doing it, regardless of the men's or women's or pairs or ice dancing, although ice dancing you don't really have as much of a risk in terms of the jumps, because there's no jumps in ice dancing, but with the pairs, the men's and the women's, when you see them start to build up towards that jump and you're really cheering for them, it's some of the most stressful stuff, man. You really want them to make that jump, no matter what country you're cheering for. You don't ever really want to see someone see someone fall or see someone mess up that badly, because you see how long they've trained for that and how hard, and that is really the pinnacle of their career. And when you see them mess up, it's kind of sad. But the figure skating was super cool, even though the gold didn't go to Canada and gold did go to the Russians, who I have a huge problem with their doping. Check out the now Academy Award winning, that's the right term, Academy Award winning documentary Icarus, that kind of exposes a lot of the behind the scenes nonsense that Russia had been doing with doping and their athletes. I really hope it didn't touch those two girls, the two figure skating ones, because I really like them. I love their rivalry, their friendship, the way they skate is incredible. I honestly I love the entire event of figure skating, and I can't wait to watch the Worlds, which are coming up in a couple weeks. I think it actually starts next weekend, and hopefully in Olympics to come, hopefully we see them again. But that Russian program, it is so super intense. It churns out new skaters every 4 years. I mean, the girl who won gold last Olympics in 2014 in Sochi, she's already retired from the sport. And she's 18, so it's ridiculously competitive there. But that is also something that makes me love that sport, because of how competitive it is, because of the narratives in it, because of the drama. But anyways, I'm just kind of repeating information now. That's all that I have for this week. If you can tell, I'm still kind of trying to get through that food coma, but I really got to push out an episode, because I don't want to leave a week gone without an episode, especially because next week I am super busy next week and I got some huge school stuff. So I'm really hoping that I will have an episode next week, but if not, I definitely will have one in 2 weeks. But for now, if you made it all the way through this incoherent rambling of an episode, thank you for listening. Make sure to check out my website, matthewchin.pagecloud.com, for the supplementary article this week. It should be out around Wednesday. I think that's when I'm going to make the blog post, every Wednesday, and it's going to be, I think, regarding the Olympics, it's going to go a little bit more in depth, with a little bit more research and a little bit more actual thought, rather than just me randomly spouting nonsense into a microphone in my room while I try not to die of thirst and try not to throw up from all the sushi that's in my stomach. Yeah, that was a lot to say. And anyways, again, thank you if you made it all the way through. You guys can follow me on Twitter at mchinquee96. And until next week, I'll chat with you guys later.
Released his record with a dishwashing company.
They launched and it was all wireless or something. I don't know, but it came out of every appliance in my house. And I was just like, I hate Connor for real.
For real.